Welcome to the reading of the book. Your Potentials, the Source of Your Greatness. Secrets to Unleashing Your Full Potentials and Achieving Greater Heights in Life. Written by Clemzyclement. Dedication. This book is dedicated to you. You were being born with great potentials to fulfill your purpose on the earth. You have everything you need to succeed in life and to make your dreams come to fruition. You were born with the potentials for greatness. Don't die a mediocre. It is abnormal to not impact the world with your potentials and achieve greatness through them. It is an error to die with your potentials unmaximized and with your purpose unfulfilled. Hence, I dedicate this book to you to show you the secrets of greatness and how to harness your potentials to transform the world so that when you finally die, you would die fulfilled. Introduction. Dearly beloved, there is tremendous power in the world for anyone who wants to leave a mark and a legacy in his generation. There is a great treasure with which everyone on earth can attain greatness and success if they so desire. This treasure is the beginning of all things. The universe was created because of this great treasure. Everything that you see existing today came from this treasure. You and everyone existing today possess this treasure, and it has the power to help you and all others achieve greatness, and fulfill your purpose and dreams in life. However, many have not discovered it, neither have they used it to their advantage. A lot more have died unrecognized and uncelebrated, yet with this treasure inside of them unidentified and unused. Only a few have discovered it and maximized it. The question then is, what is this tremendous power and great treasure that is available to all men? This treasure is called potentials. It has the power to create, to produce, and to make all men great if only they will discover and maximize it. Many do not even know they have it. Others despised and ignored it, but those who discovered, valued and nurtured it changed their world with it, and through it created legacies that the world will never forget in a hurry. Are you wondering why you are not one of the great names in our world today? Are you wondering why you have not been able to achieve that which you want to achieve? The reason is not far-fetched. You probably do not know what you are capable of. You perhaps are unaware of how much potentials you have on your inside, or how to use them. It is for this reason that I invite you on this journey to discovering your full potentials and what you are capable of achieving in life. I have written this book to show you the great possibilities that are available to you through the use of your potentials. You will find out that you can become greater than any great name you know, as you discover the secrets of greatness hidden within these pages. It will bring to your consciousness that through the power of your potentials, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve in life. Our world is full of people living below their full capacities. And that is one of the reasons why our world is as chaotic as it is. It is the reason why multitudes of people are living a life of mediocrity. Most nations are still called third world nations not because they do not have the ability to become first world nations, but because the citizens of these nations perhaps have not discovered their potentials or are living far below their capacities. Within the pages of this book are solutions to national and global problems. I have written here how nations can be transformed through the power of potentials. This book will change the way you see yourself and your perspective towards life. It will reveal to you that you can leave your mark in the sand of time. It will teach you how to achieve greatness and success in life. You were not born to be a victim of life's circumstances. You were born to maximize and to fulfill your potentials. You were born to live a great life through the use of your potentials. You were not supposed to come to this world and die with your potentials unused. You were not sent to earth to enrich the grave with your potentials, but to impact the world with them. This book will transmogrify your life completely. It will totally change you. It will challenge you beyond your limitations, it will stretch you beyond your comfort zone, and above all, it will make sure that at the time of your death, you would die empty, because you would have used up all your potentials to impact the world and imprint your name in the hearts of men and in the sand of time. Join me on this journey to discovering the secrets of all greatness. come with me on this voyage to the top. It is time to discover how to change your world. Get out of your comfort zone. You don't belong there. You have potentials for greatness. Brace up yourself. Go ahead and climb your way to the top. See you there. Chapter 1. Potentials, the beginning of all things. Looking at the world around you, you would realize that there are a lot of people and things existing today. You would see people, cars, houses, books, computers, street lights, stars, moon, aeroplanes, and any other thing that you can think of. However, I want you to think for a minute about how they all came into existence. Where were they before they started to exist visibly? They all were encompassed in one word called potentials, and they all came into existence because of that word potentials. This word potentials, though used by many people in their everyday vocabulary, yet only a few know the power and worth of its meaning. In my opinion, the word potentials is one of the most important words in the dictionary, and I am going to tell you why I said that. The reason I said that is because the whole earth exists only because of the word potentials. What I mean is that everything that exists on the face of the earth today came from potentials. If you look around you today, anything that is visible to your eyes is only visible because it came from the word potentials. There was a time when everything you see on the earth today was not available. There was a time when we had no cars, no aeroplanes, no phones, no buildings and no clothes. But today, all these are in existence, and they all are in existence because they came from potentials. Now, what are potentials and why is it so important a word that it could bring all things into existence? One dictionary defined it as meaning, capable of being but not yet in existence, latent, the inherent ability or capacity for growth, development, or coming into being. The word potentials, in simple terms, mean ability, unused or untapped ability. It also means the possibility to become something or the possibility to produce something. It could also mean the power to do or become. Therefore the word potential means what you are capable of becoming or producing. From the above definitions, you will notice that potentials imply possibilities. It talks about what you can still do or capable of doing in the future, or what you are capable of becoming in the future. So, the word potentials is always talking about the future, not about the past. It is a futuristic term and implies what you are still able to do or become. Having said that the world and everything in it exists because of potentials, the question that comes to mind, therefore, is, where then was the world before it began? It was in the form of potentials. Where then was the car before the first car was invented? It existed only in the form of potentials inside the inventor. What about the electric bulb? Where was it before it was invented? It was in existence but only as potentials inside the inventor. All of the things we see today in existence were once existing invisibly and only in the form of potentials. Potentials, therefore, is the beginning of all things. Everything you see today only exists because they came from potentials. Without potentials, nothing would be in existence. According to scientists and those who believe in the Big Bang theory of creation, it was assumed that the universe was more condensed at a previous time and that all the currently observed matter and energy in the universe were initially condensed in a very small and infinitely hot mass. A huge explosion, known as the Big Bang, then sent matter and energy expanding in all directions, and that is how the visible universe we see today came to be. What does this theory tell us? It tells us that the whole universe came from something. Something that was once condensed, an infinitely hot mass. However, it was not specified what that condensed hot mass was. But for the purpose of this book, I will like to call it potentials. The whole universe came from potentials. If that very small and infinite hot mass had so much ability that it could become a whole universe, then we could call it potentials, as it fits into our earlier definition of the word potentials. Nevertheless, from a religious point of view, the universe came to be because God created it. How did He create it, and from what did He create it? To understand that, you must first understand that God Himself is full of potentials. He is called Omnipotent God, meaning the all-powerful God, the God of infinite potentials. Little wonder He was able to create the heavens and the earth. Before the heavens and the earth were created, they existed invisibly as potentials inside of God. In other words, God had the potentials to become a creator and to convert His potentials into heavens and earth. In fact, the book of Romans has this to say. As the scripture says, "Who knows the mind of the Lord? Who is able to give Him advice? Who has ever given Him anything, so that He had to pay it back? For all things were created by Him, and all things exist through Him and for Him. To God be the glory forever. Amen." Romans 11:34-36 Good News Translation. Looking at the 36th verse, you will notice that all things were created by Him, they all exist through Him and for Him. In other words, everything that exists today came from God. However, before they came into existence, they were only in the form of potentials. Until the creation of the heavens and the earth, man and everything that exists today could only be regarded as potentials living inside of God. The first book of Genesis further illustrates how God converted His potentials into the visible world that we behold today. Therefore, whether you believe that the universe began as a condensed hot mass or you believe that it was created by God, one thing is obvious: the universe came into existence because of potentials. It was because potentials were converted that we have a universe today. The ability of that hot condensed mass to become a universe is called potentials, and the ability with which God created the universe is called potentials. Everything, therefore, came from something, and that thing is called potentials. Before anything came into visible existence, it first existed as potentials. Potentials, therefore, is the beginning of all things. Remember this: everything you see today only exists because they came from potentials. Without potentials, nothing would be in existence. Subchapter: Everyone has the potential for greatness. Having said that potential is the beginning of all things and that everything exists only because of it, I hereby want to state that this knowledge will do you no good until you fully understand the next point I want us to consider, and that is the fact that you have that great treasure called potentials at your disposal. What I mean is that you have inside of you that treasure from which the world and everything in it was created. Potentials lie deep within you. In fact, everyone that exists on earth has potentials within him or her. There is no one on the face of the earth who is without potentials. Everybody has got potentials, or the ability to create something or become something. If everything came from potentials, then potentials is a treasure from which we all could create and become whatever we want. Everything can be gotten from potentials, and so is greatness and success. What I mean is that you can become great and successful in life if you could just recognize the treasure of potentials that are resident on your inside. Your potentials are the source of your greatness. Everyone has been given the gift of potentials, and whatever each person does with those potentials determines whether or not he or she will be great and successful in life. Everyone has the potential for greatness, the potential to change and become the best of who they can be. So always aspire for greatness. Anonymous, Board of Wisdom. How can you have that from which everything was created and not create greatness with it? How can you have the ability to become anything you want and not aspire to become great and successful in life? That will be a total waste of treasures. You will be doing a disservice to yourself if you do not use your potentials to achieve greatness in life. Dearly beloved, I don't think you see what I am seeing yet. Just as everything that exists comes from potentials, so also is greatness and success. Greatness is a product of potentials. Or better put, your potential is the source of all greatness. What I am saying is that you have the source of all greatness within you. You have that treasure that can make you great and successful in life. Everybody has been given the potentials for greatness, but those who become great in life are those who recognize the worth of their potentials and through that knowledge create greatness for themselves. We all have the ability to become whatever we choose to become in life and to create whatever we want to create. How do I know that? From the points I made earlier, you saw that the heavens and the earth exist because of God's potentials. God has potentials, and not just that he has few potentials, but innumerable potentials. He has numerous abilities. However, this book is not about God but about you. If this book is about you, of what use then is the exposition about God's potentials? It is only to drive home a point, and that point is the fact that it is not only God who has numerous potentials. I want to prove to you that every human being also has numerous abilities and potentials. And I know that, because every human was made in the image and likeness of God. This is how the scripture in Genesis chapter 1 explains it. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." So God created man in his own image, in the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. Genesis 1:26-27, King James Version. Therefore, if God being omnipotent, has numerous potentials and man is made in his image and after his likeness, then man also has numerous potentials. What I am trying to bring to your awareness is that you have numerous potentials and abilities on your inside to become whatever you want to become and create whatever you want to create. An understanding of this statement that you and all humans have numerous potentials could cause a major shift in the way you live your life. It could propel you to begin to live with the consciousness that you have the ability to live a great life here on earth. Just an understanding that you have numerous potentials like God has, can turn your life around swiftly. It will change the way you see yourself and how you live your life. If you can put it in your mind and live with that understanding that you have numerous potentials, there is nothing you cannot achieve on the face of the earth. If you understand that you have the potentials for greatness, you will no longer look at great names like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk and a host of other celebrated icons as superhuman. An understanding of the fact that you carry great potentials on your inside, just like God, will put an end to all self-pity and low self-esteem. When you begin to appreciate the great potentials you have on your inside, you will no longer live like one who is incapacitated, who is a victim of life's circumstances and who is disadvantaged in life, but you will begin to see yourself as a creator, one full of great potentials and who can become whatever he sets his heart to become and to do whatever he chooses to do. Truly, we all have the potentials for greatness, because we all came from the omnipotent God. Remember this. Everyone has been given the gift of potentials, and whatever each person does with those potentials determines whether or not he or she will be great and successful in life. Subchapter: You had it all along. You needed to work on it. In 1960, the then unpopular music band, the Beatles, went to Hamburg, Germany, to play in some local clubs. However, they could not impress the audience who came to listen and watch them play. Their sound was noisy and uncoordinated. As a result, they were not properly paid and the people really didn't appreciate their music. What was the problem? Could it be that they didn't have the potentials to do good and impressive music? Well, that we will find out soon. Most people look at themselves and conclude that they do not have the potentials to do certain things. That is most likely just an assumption. The reason is that history has shown us people who once thought they didn't have the potentials to excel or succeed in a particular sphere of life, but who surprisingly shook the world with their feats in that same thing they once thought they didn't have potentials for. What always made the difference was an understanding of one's potentials and harnessing the power in those potentials to create unbelievable feats. History is full of people who rose from nothing and from mediocrity to greatness through the use of their potentials. Hence, the worst person who had written himself off assuming that he has no potentials for something can actually become the world's best celebrated icon for that same thing. Therefore, if you have looked at yourself and concluded that you do not have the potentials for greatness, I want you to know that you are making a big mistake. You have every potential within you for greatness. All that is required is taking advantage of those potentials and converting them to greatness. Everyone has the potentials to excel in life, and that excellence can be made possible by repeatedly working and building on those potentials. That was exactly what the music group, the Beatles, did. After their poor performance in Hamburg, the Beatles learned a lesson. They discovered that if they must improve their music, they had to practice more than ever before. Hence they increased their playing time, repeatedly practicing again and again. It was that non-stop hours of practice and playing that led to an improvement in their skills. As they became more and more skillful, they had more people asking for more performances. By 1962 they were playing 8 hours per night, 7 nights per week. That same year, the Beatles embarked on a status-changing journey, from an unpopular local band to the most famous and most celebrated rock group in all of England. However, their success started off with a big failure. The 4 young men went for an audition for Decca Records on January 1st, 1962. To their surprise, they were rejected. They were not signed. Nobody was impressed with their performances, and they were not good enough to get a record deal. They needed to work harder, they needed to improve their potentials. That incident led to more and more practices and improvements. The more they practiced, the more developed their potentials became, and by 1964, they burst on the international scene and became one of the most celebrated rock music groups in the world. Billboard.com had this to say about them. To start with the obvious, they were the greatest and most influential act of the rock era and introduced more innovations into popular music than any other rock band of the 20th century. Moreover, they were among the few artists of any discipline that were simultaneously the best at what they did and the most popular at what they did. It's hard to convey the scope of the Beatles' achievements in a mere paragraph or two. They synthesized all that was good about early rock and roll and changed it into something original and even more exciting. Dearly beloved, the Beatles literally changed the course of rock music and made it so irresistible that the whole world wanted to hear more of it. But how did they become that good and popular? What was the difference between the poor local Beatles music group in Hamburg, the unimpressive group that was rejected by Decca Records in England, and the Beatles group that became the greatest and most popular music group in history? 2 members of the group had this to say about their earlier failure. The Beatles' oral history anthology finds McCartney and Lennon reflecting upon the Decca audition in hindsight. "Listening to the tapes, I can understand why we failed the Decca audition," said McCartney. "We weren't that good, though there were some quite interesting and original things." Ever contrary to his partner, Lennon disagreed. "I wouldn't have turned us down on that," he said. "I think it sounded okay. I think Decca expected us to be all polished, we were just doing a demo. They should have seen our potential." Now what do we see from these 2 positions above? First, McCartney admitted that they failed because they were not that good, while Lennon expected Decca Records to have seen their potentials even though they weren't very good. It could be true that they had some potentials for greatness. However, for that potential not to have been seen meant that they had not worked seriously on it to improve it. Therefore, in answering the earlier question I asked about whether or not the Beatles had potentials, this is what I would like to say. They had the potentials in them, they only had not worked on what they had. Potentials will remain invisible and worthless if we don't work on them to improve them. They had all the potentials in them to become the world's best, yet they failed. They were rejected and nobody appreciated them though they had potentials. The simple reason why that happened is that potentials only become visible and appreciated after one has done sufficient work to improve them and make them conspicuous. That work was the constant practices they had. That work was the sleepless nights of rehearsals and concerts they organized. The difference between the poor local Beatles music group in Hamburg, the unimpressive group that was rejected by Decca Records in England, and the Beatles group that became the greatest and most popular music group in history was hard work. Until they worked on their potentials, they never became successful and famous. It was only after understanding their potentials, relentlessly practicing and rehearsing to nurture them, that they got the honor and respect the world later accorded them. It is potentials plus hard work that leads to greatness. Hence, you must never conclude that you do not have the potentials for greatness. You do have potentials, and I am going to show you in this book how to recognize your potentials and work on them to achieve greatness. If you can continually work on your potentials, there is no height of greatness that you cannot achieve. Even if you have failed severally trying to achieve a feat, never conclude that you do not have the potentials for it. You have it, you only need to work on it. You only need to practice more, study more, rehearse more, research more, and you will sooner or later get to the top of your game. Then and only then, will it become obvious to you that you had it all along. You only needed to work on it. Dearly beloved, why did I share the story of the Beatles with you? It is to bring to your awareness that there are potentials that are hidden deep within you, unused, and unexpressed. There is untapped energy within you. The potentials for greatness are deposited on your inside waiting to be activated. You only need to recognize and work on them. Untapped potential is the difference between where a person is now and where he or she can be. Bo Bennett. If you haven't gotten to where you desire to be in life, it is simply because you haven't tapped into the power of your potentials. Your potentials are still unused and untapped, and until you work on your potentials, you will never get to where you ought to be in life. Though potentials are the source of greatness, yet until you work on your potentials, you will never achieve greatness in life. If you are finding it difficult getting to the peak of your purpose, your career, your research, your work, your inventions, etc., it is not because you do not have the potentials or capacity to get to the peak. It is perhaps because you haven't worked hard enough to improve your potentials and your capacity. I have learned from history that man's major problem is not that he lacks capacity, but that he is ignorant of what he is capable of. Your major challenge is not that you are incapacitated, but that you do not know what you are capable of. You are capable of anything and of everything because you have inbuilt potentials within you. If you can get that into your mind and begin to work on your potentials, then you are ready to become anything you want to become in life. You are ready to walk the path to greatness. Remember this: if you haven't gotten to where you desire to be in life, it is simply because you haven't tapped into the power of your potentials. Your potentials are still unused and untapped, and until you work on your potentials, you will never get to where you ought to be in life. Subchapter: Potentials are not geographically or genetically determined. I have spoken with quite a number of students in Ukraine, especially those of African descent, about what they thought was the criteria for greatness and if they thought they by any chance had the potentials for greatness. The response I got was quite similar and familiar, having heard similar responses while schooling in Nigeria as an undergraduate. The majority of the students said that greatness was determined by one's place of birth, and that if they had been born in America or in Europe, they would have had the potentials for greatness, and since they were born in some poor states in Africa, they don't think they have any chance for greatness. Some others said that it is going to be a difficult thing and an almost unrealizable dream to wish to become as great and successful in life as the likes of Bill Gates, Warren Buffett and Mark Zuckerberg, and the reason is simply that they were dark-skinned as opposed to those successful white icons. Well, that is just their beliefs and opinions. What do you think determines greatness? Do we all have equal potentials for greatness, or do you think those who are white-skinned and are born in Europe or in the United States of America have the upper hand? I am going to give you my position as regards the questions above. However, I will like to share a story with you briefly that will make my position easier to come to terms with. There you go, Usain Bolt said moments after the world watched him go supersonic for a final time in the Olympics at Rio. I am the greatest. Bolt had just completed the historic feat of the triple treble, winning the Olympic 100 meters, 200 meters and 4x100 relay races for the third consecutive time. No other sprinter had secured 3 consecutive Olympic golds in even one of those disciplines. Finishing the 100 meters in under 10 seconds is an exceptional physical and psychological achievement that only 124 men have accomplished. For historical context, the first 100 meters Olympic gold medal winner finished the sprint in 12 seconds. In total, Bolt has broken the 10-second barrier 49 times during his career, earning him 6 gold medals in World Championships and Olympics. Bolt holds 9 out of the 30 fastest 100 meters times and is the only athlete on that leaderboard to have never failed a drug test. It is not only his 100 meters feats that set him apart, however. In a world of ever-improving performances and otherwise short-lived triumphs, Lightning Bolt has also set and continually defended the world record in the 200 meters, a discipline he has excelled in since his youth. As the fastest and final runner in the Jamaican relay team, Bolt has helped to propel them to the top of the leaderboard, earning his country 6 more gold medals alongside his solo races. The impressive number of Bolt's victories means his dominance remains unquestioned. Having seen his feat, let's see who Usain Bolt really is. Is he a white man? No. He is dark-skinned. Is he from Europe or United States? No. He is from Jamaica, a Caribbean island nation in North America. Did he compete with athletes from Europe and the United States? Yes. He did and defeated them severally. If he is a dark-skinned man and not from the United States or Europe, how then did he become the fastest man in the world? How then did he become the greatest? The answer is simple. He became the greatest by understanding the power of potentials, and thanks to that, converted his potentials into becoming the world's fastest man. He understood that potentials are the source of greatness and simply worked on and improved his potentials. He did that by investing time and energy into practices and endless training. He got a trainer, looked for available stadiums and training facilities, and worked tirelessly on his potentials with the intention of becoming the world greatest. That is to prove to the world that success or greatness is not determined by place of birth or skin color. Potentials well expressed are the breeding grounds for greatness and success, irrespective of whether we are white or black. The argument that you are not great or successful because you are dark-skinned or because you didn't grow up in the USA or in Europe holds no water. It is not a valid argument, it is worthless and useless. Such an argument is only an excuse for laziness and short-sightedness. It's nothing but a display of ignorance to assume that one is limited in life by his skin color or place of birth. Such myopic mindset is the reason multitude of people goes to the grave with great potentials unfulfilled. Many people have died with their potentials unused simply because of one ignorant assumption that they stand no chance to succeed and attain greatness in life since they were from poor countries and belong to the black race. Dearly beloved, I do not want you to repeat the same mistake. I desire that you don't leave your potentials unused and untapped. There is no need for them in the grave where we all head. That is why I have written this book, to help you discover and maximize your potentials and to through those potentials achieve greatness in life. To further our discussion on the subject matter, this is my submission regarding the criteria for greatness. Every one of us, irrespective of our place of birth or skin color, has equal potentials for greatness. It is what we do with our potentials that determines whether we succeed and achieve greatness in life or not. Usain Bolt worked on and nurtured his potentials, and thanks to that, became the fastest man in the world. Not even the white-skinned athletes born in the United States and in Europe could defeat him. That is a proof that, contrary to what most of my African brothers and sisters think, it is not our geographical location or skin color that determines our success in life, but what we do with our potentials. We all have been given potentials, and that is the criteria for greatness. You could be the next Usain Bolt, you could become the next Bill Gates, you could become the next Michael Jordan, and you could become the next Martin Luther King Jr. What matters is that you discover the power of your potentials and buy greatness with it. So, don't die with your potentials believing that you are disadvantaged and that you don't stand a chance to succeed in life. Because you have potentials, you have what it takes to become great and successful like all others. Don't belittle yourself. Never underestimate the power of dreams and the influence of the human spirit. We are all the same in this notion. The potential for greatness lives within each of us. Wilma Rudolph. Looking at the quote above, Wilma Rudolph drove home the point I have been trying to make, and if you pay careful attention to the last sentence, you will see it reads, "We are all the same in this notion. The potential for greatness lives within each of us." Now, that is an interesting statement. It is interesting because it brings every one of us, whether white or black, American or African, rich or poor, under one umbrella, and that umbrella has inscribed on it, "The potential for greatness lives within each of us." What then is your excuse for failure or mediocrity in life? It has already been rendered illogical and worthless by the fact that we all have the potential for greatness within us, and we are all the same in this notion. To still blame your race or geographical location for your inability to excel in life after reading this book, will be a conscious act of agreeing to limit yourself to your faulty thought pattern. It will mean willfully signing a contract with mediocrity for the rest of your life. But if you really want to live a great and successful life, here are 5 keys that will help you. 1. Cultivate your potentials. One secret to living a great and successful life is to learn to develop and improve your potentials. Keep working on them, keep exercising and putting them to use. They get better and better the more you cultivate them. 2. Challenge yourself. To truly discover your full potentials, you will have to take on tasks you never thought you could do. You will be amazed to find that what you thought was your norm was just an average of your true potentials. Greatness starts when you decide to go beyond your norm. 3. Create something. If you want to become great, you must first learn to use your potentials to create something visible and valuable. The creative ability dwells in each one of us. If God had not created, he would neither be worshipped nor called great by anyone today. 4. Refuse to demean yourself. How you see yourself matters a lot. You cannot expect to be great and successful when you don't believe in your own potentials. You are not incapacitated, you are multipotent. 5. Decide your value. Never allow your place of birth, your background or country of origin determine your worth. You can decide your own value by showing to the world what you are capable of. You worth as much of your potentials you put to use. To summarize this chapter, let's do a quick review of what we've discussed so far. The first thing to remember is that potentials are the beginning of all things. Everything you see existing in the world today exists only because of potentials. And it is potentials that gave birth to everything on earth. The reason is that everything that exists today once existed as potentials. Everything that exists today once existed only in the invisible realm of the mind as potentials. In the same vein, anything that will exist tomorrow, anything not existing now is already existing in the invisible realm as potentials in us. But those potentials can't be of any value to anybody until we discover and convert them into visible reality, into tangible products that will benefit the world. This chapter also highlighted the fact that because God himself is omnipotent, He made man after his image and likeness so that every human being can have so many potentials on their inside to become whoever they have been created to become. Furthermore, the chapter also debunked the stereotype that race and geographical location are the primary determinants of greatness. It explained with simple examples why anybody irrespective of his skin color or nationality can achieve greatness, and that what is needed is simply to work on one's potentials and through the power of those potentials, achieve greatness in life. Finally, dearly beloved, you must never forget that nobody is born without potentials. There is no one on the face of the earth empty without potentials. We all have potentials to become that which we were created to become. You have the potentials to attain any height in life. You have the potentials to become that for which you were created. You have the potentials to produce that which you have been born to produce. You are not worse than anyone else. You only need to work on your potentials to become the primus inter pares. It is potentials plus hard work that leads to greatness. It is my belief that most people irrespective of race or nationality will surprise themselves if they work hard and believe in their potentials. Remember, God is a great God and He used His potentials to create the world. The Beatles used their potentials to become the most celebrated music group of all time, and Usain Bolt used his potentials to become the fastest man alive. What will you do with yours? In the next chapter, I am going to convince you to not die with your potentials. See you there. Thank you for listening. To get the complete book, visit Amazon.com or okthebook.com. You can also write to Clemzyclement75@yahoo.com. Or write to Clemzyclement on Facebook Messenger. See you in the next chapter.